Hey guys, Zach here, and welcome to ProtoManly's weather mod. This is version 0.13.10, which is in the alpha phase. So as you know, a lot of things are going to be improved and a lot of things will be added. So this is not the final product. This is still an alpha. So let's go ahead and get started here. As you can see, first thing you see are some of these clouds. We actually, not a lot of clouds at the moment. If you can look over there though, look at these clouds. These are volumetric clouds. So no particles here. These are volumetric. They are 3D and they actually look quite incredible. I mean, they look like real clouds. This is insane. One more thing to add before we start. Shaders do not work with this mod, unfortunately. The clouds here are actually based off Minecraft's default shaders. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and get started with the first category of this mod here, which are the blocks and items that you can obtain and craft in this game. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the first one here, which is the tornado sensor. As you can see, this block can sense tornadoes and actually output a redstone signal up to 15 blocks. So it is pretty useful if you want to use it for activating doors, activating lights, perhaps to warn you if you can't hear the siren, which we will actually be going over next. Let's actually show you how this works here. So we're gonna actually spawn a tornado. I'll teach you all the commands later, but for now we're just gonna spawn a tornado. Let's do 100. Let's do something weak. That's what the tornadoes look like. We'll get a better view later, but as you can see, it has turned on. If I clear, as you see, it has turned off. It is not outputting a redstone signal. So this is great if you want to hook it up to some type of redstone contraption to help warn you that there are tornadoes nearby. Maybe you can connect it to something that, you know, hides all of your animals or villagers or takes all your crops down before the tornado gets them. It can actually be pretty useful. If you want to craft this, actually have it right here. It is 2 iron ingots, 1 copper, 3 redstone, and 3 gold. So not too hard, thankfully, considering it actually does go into a lot of the other blocks. It is part of the crafting for a lot of these. Not super hard to make, something you could probably make in the first really couple of days, thankfully. But I'm gonna put this back here. We're gonna move on to our next block, is the tornado siren. Tornado siren is very, very useful if you want a auditory warning that there's a tornado coming near. You're gonna get it from this. I mean, everyone basically knows what, especially if you live in the US, you know what a tornado siren is. We're actually gonna go ahead and show you all that right now. That is the sound of the tornado siren going off, warning us there's a tornado nearby, and it's doing a pretty good job of that. Once tornadoes get within a certain range, this will start to go off, and once they leave, it will turn off eventually. It just takes a second. Now this one is an expensive block. As you can see here, we have 5 iron ingots, a jukebox, a tornado sensor, and 2 diamonds. So it is a very good warning system. Thankfully, they're not really that loud in this game. I know some other mods have had the issues of the tornado sirens being just way too loud. I really love the way this one sounds. It's not too loud, it's not too quiet. You're gonna hear it. Very good warning. It is expensive to make, but I'd say it's worth it. Now moving on to our third block, it is probably one of the best blocks in the game. It is the radar. So the radar displays radar imagery. So you can see there are no storms. Let me actually go ahead and get a storm going so you can actually see this. As you can see here, I have spawned a storm and it's just about over this. That red dot in the center is our current location, and all this other colorization is the precip. The radar is detecting the precipitation, and as it gets heavier, you get more from, you know, these lighter blue to green colors. You get more oranges, reds, even pinks as this rain gets heavier, and eventually as you get hail. So it's very useful if you want to see storms. We'll go over what the different storms look like on this radar a little later. And if you actually right click it here, you get what's known as velocity. So velocity is really neat. We actually have, ooh, that's actually interesting. This is a supercell, but as you can see, when we go to velocity, this just shows us how fast the wind is moving in these rain droplets. So as you can see here, green, it actually means it's coming towards the radar. Red means away, as you can see. So the wind is coming from the northwest right now, just about in this entire supercell structure, except down here, which we do have a little bit of convergence. You can see winds are going away from the radar here, with this little bit of green going towards. We actually have a little bit of rotation there, but we'll go over that later as we go into the storm types once again. Now, if you want to make this radar, you can go here and see this. It is actually 8 iron nuggets, 1 copper ingot, and a tornado sensor. Tornado sensor is going to be used on just about all these items here, but Not too expensive a build. However, in order to get this radar working, we're going to need some special blocks to help. As you can see by this radome or radar tower I actually built here. So going on to our next block, which is linked, these next two blocks are actually linked to the radar, but we have the WSR-88D core. So this is the core of our radar tower I made here. So it looks like this. Pretty small. Not too expensive to craft, just tornado sensor, 4 iron ingots, and an amethyst shard. Not crazy. A lot of these items thankfully aren't as expensive to make, except the tornado siren. That it's a little expensive, but it's worth it. And if you want to make a radar like this, so you can transmit data onto this radar viewer here, you actually need what's called a radome. So this is the outer layer of this radar here. Nice little white hexagonal texture here. Pretty cheap to make these, which of course you need a lot of them for that radar tower. It is really just 4 glass, 1 redstone dust, and 4 of any type of wool, and you will get 2 of these. Now, the reason you need a lot for them is you need to make this radar tower in order to make this radar work. So let me show you how to make this real quick. You can actually have this either above ground or below ground. It actually doesn't matter. If you want your radar to be safe and you want to keep, building it if it's weak, I'd put it underground. But I think it looks nice, and just like its real life counterpart, if you build it like this, it looks pretty nice. So as you can see, if we break in here, that is the radome powering down. I have broken the structure that houses it. It's like a cubical spherical shape. We have 9 radar blocks on 6 sides, so that is 54 radome blocks are needed. And what you need to do to build this is you need to put this WSR-88D core in the middle. It doesn't matter what you have right here. You can actually have this floating if you want, but you can really put anything there. Just put this in the middle and have these radome blocks around the center like that. Once you close it off and finish it, it should make a powering on noise. That's how you know it's working. Now, I actually did build one underground, so you can see. This one also works too, even though it's underground. I don't know if that's on purpose or honestly, it's a pretty nice feature. I don't think he's going to take it away anytime soon, but pretty nice feature you can do there. So I'm going to actually show you what happens when both radars are out. So this one's also powered down. Look at the radar here. It is just a scrambled mess. So this radar is not usable here. Just not usable at all. But power that back on and it is back to work. So if you want a radar, you're going to have to make one of these. Not too expensive to make, thankfully, especially this radome block. So that's pretty good. So that just about does it for the radar section of these blocks. Moving on to the anemometer. This is our second to last item here. Anemometers actually measure wind speed. So you can see you got these cups that rotate, they catch the wind, and it actually gives you a wind speed reading. So right now we're only getting 10 miles an hour. If we were closer to a storm or a tornado, God, that's beautiful. If we were closer to a storm or a tornado, you'd be getting higher winds. Sometimes you can get really low winds. This ambient wind here, really only like 10 miles an hour. Of course, you're not going to get something crazy strong. Now, if you want to make this, it is actually pretty easy. Just 2 buckets, 2 iron, and 3 stone. Real easy to make there. They can be pretty useful too. So, pretty nice feature there. Next up is our last item. This is the weather station. It's basically like an anemometer, but better. You actually get more information. So you can see here, got our nice little weather station. When you click on it, you actually get wind speed, you get wind direction, you get your temperature, your dew point, which is basically how much moisture you have in the atmosphere. Usually you want higher for better moisture, for better fuel for storms. And lastly, you have your risk, which it says we have an enhanced risk, which is 4 out of 6. So the risks are basically like the ones you get in real life from the Storm Prediction Center here in the US. It goes anywhere from a regular thunderstorm risk all the way up to a high risk, which is technically a 6 out of 6 in this case. As you go up, your severe level increases, you'll get more storms, your storms will be stronger, and of course you'll get more hazards that come along with those. So that just about does it for our blocks and items part of this mod showcase. Now it's time to get into the fun stuff, like some of the commands. I actually was using some of those earlier, but we're gonna see how to use those. If you want to use the commands in this mod, all you have to do is type vbase, which is /PMWEATHER, and you get a couple options here. So let's go ahead and start from the top and go to the bottom. Aim to player, then you go to all. This will aim all storms at the closest player. So if it's just you, all the storms will start coming after you. Whatever speed they were going at, they'll just keep coming at you. If there's multiple people, they'll go to whatever player is closest to them. All right, so now for our next one here, we have block strength. You can actually see the strengths of the different blocks in Minecraft and see how they resist against tornadoes. So let's do glass. So glass is damaged at 92 miles an hour. That's when it gets picked up or destroyed. A little bit higher than I thought it would. But if we go for something like wool, 60 miles an hour, that's pretty weak. That's not that hard to achieve in this game. That's like an EF0 tornado, which we'll go over those that scale later. So it's really useful. I wonder if obsidian's on here or if it's 484 miles an hour. So it actually does have a strength. It's just ridiculously high because realistically you're not going to be destroying something like that. It's a great way to see what you want to make a storm shelter or a tornado shelter out of and check to make sure everything's working. We go to our next, we go to PM weather, we go to clear, we go to all. This actually clears all the storms. We didn't have a storm at the moment. Ours kind of got out of view. But this actually clears all the storms in the world. Pretty useful if you want to just mess around. You want to clear a storm, get it out. All right, for our next command, /PM weather, it is spawn. So that you can actually spawn the 3 different types of storms in this mod. It goes from squall, supercell, tornado. We'll be going over those in the next section. However, when you actually go to these, you can either just click natural, which will go through the natural progression of the storm's life cycle, or you can go ahead and give it a stage and energy. The stages go from 0 to 3. 0 being just a rain shower, and 1 being when it actually starts to pick up its storm characteristics. Now, the higher the stage, the more intense this storm will be. So a 2 or a 3, especially a 3, that's going to be your maxed out storm. And your energy level is basically the percentage it's gotten through that particular stage it's on. So if you're on stage 1 and you go energy 99, that means it's 1 energy away from turning into a stage 2 storm. That's basically the stages for that command. When it comes to the tornado, that is another special case. You actually can choose the wind speed and how wide the tornado is. Of course, the higher the wind speed, the stronger, and the larger it is, the larger it'll look. Now, if we go to our final command here, that is the strike command. Okay. It actually it might have been behind me. Let's see if we can. Okay. But basically, it spawns a random lightning bolt within a certain radius of your location. And it's just nice to have, I guess. You just strike. There we go. See? We just had lightning right there. So basically, just strikes lightning. However, I think that does it for our commands here. It's time to move on to the next section, which is our storm types. And speaking of storms, look who decided to join the party. This is the supercell, the mother of all storms. Supercells are large, tall, rotating behemoths that provide all types of hazards that you'll encounter in this mod, ranging from intense lightning to large hail, damaging winds, and of course, the tornado. These storms have a large bean-like shape on the reflectivity radar product with a dense pink core, indicative of heavy rain and large hail. They usually have a velocity couplet associated with them on the velocity radar product, which can be detected by the green inbound and red outbound colors in close proximity to each other, signaling rotation. Once the supercell gets strong enough, a large, dark, rotating mass will protrude out of the base of the storm known as a wall cloud. If we look back at radar here, you can see a hook has formed on the rear flank of the storm, and the velocities have strengthened. If the supercell continues to strengthen its rotation, it will give birth to our next storm type, the main focus of the mod and what everyone's been waiting for, the tornado. Once fully touching the ground, our tornado here will begin its rampage through the lands of our world. However, its strength and size will determine the amount of destruction it will inflict. Our storm producing the tornado will now have a more wrapped up hook on reflectivity, while our velocities will increase in intensity. Tornadoes come in a variety of shapes and sizes. However, most in this mod will take the form of a stovepipe or rope shape, with larger tornadoes being rarer and taking more of a cone shape. Just like their real-life counterparts, tornadoes in this mod have variable wind speeds based off the enhanced Fujita or EF scale, with higher wind speeds landing them higher on the scale. This scale ranges from 0 to 5, with EF0 tornadoes doing some tree damage, while EF5s can level entire forests and towns. Intense to violent tornadoes, usually around the EF3 or higher range, also come with their own damage features. In forests, these stronger tornadoes can strip the bark off trees, leaving their stripped variants behind in a process called debarking. If the tornadoes are strong enough, they can literally rip the grass up from the ground in a process called ground scouring. There are 3 levels to ground scouring, each taking longer to heal, with higher in scouring leaving a light green mark across the ground over the process of a few days, engraving the tornado's impact across the landscape it once tore across. In terms of house damage, weaker tornadoes target weaker blocks like wood, planks, and wool, while more violent tornadoes can pick up more resilient blocks like stone, logs, and concrete. These block strengths can be customized in the config, which we will go over near the end of this video. Eventually, at the end of its life cycle, the tornado will rope out and dissipate. Overall, the tornadoes in this mod are just insane, and the power they hold is reflected incredibly here by Manly. Our final storm type for this mod at the moment is the squall line. These long lines of storms are characterized by their linear appearance on radar and their large shelf cloud in front of the core. These squalls bring heavy rain and strong straight line winds whenever they pass over, and can even become strong enough to throw leaf blocks around and cause small damage. Their velocity presentation can be quite impressive with an area of high winds along their gust front. After passing over, the sky can go extremely dark, even in the middle of the day, adding a sense of eeriness to the atmosphere. Just like supercells and tornadoes, squall lines have their own life cycles where they form, mature, and weaken, and it can have varying strengths. Alright, now we're going to start getting into more of the advanced stuff in the mod that a lot of people aren't really familiar with, that kind of goes into depth into, meteorology. So as you can see here, we have some newer blocks I want to show y'all that have come out for this 0.14 update. Alright, so real quick, before we get to the sounding stuff, we're going to go over the reinforced glass, which is one of the newer blocks, as you can see here. Reinforced glass and reinforced glass panes, as you can see, are basically what their name is. They're reinforced. So if you want to make these, basically just check this out. It's basically just any glass block with obsidian in the middle for the reinforced glass block, and for the panes, it's just 6 glass blocks for 16 glass panes. So not super expensive if you want to, protect your garden or stop getting your windows blown out by, any type of wind. I mean, I'm sure windows break at like what, 80, 90 miles an hour, so pretty low. These don't break until 163. You can actually check it with the block strength command. Look at that, 163 miles an hour. So very useful there. All right, for the sounding system, we're going to be starting off with the weather balloons. So the weather balloons are basically just used to get thermodynamic values of the atmosphere at a certain location, which is this fancy terminology for basically just getting weather data, which is temperature, dew point, and getting your instability profile for a certain point at the atmosphere, which is really important for how these storms behave in this world. So if you want to make one of these weather balloons so you can launch it, you need 3 wool of any color, a string, 2 iron, and redstone dust, and you get 2 of these. So not very expensive, which is actually really nice, because some people are going to want to launch these a lot. Some people are barely going to use this. Personally, me, I'm probably going to use this a lot. I'm going to be launching a lot of balloons. So the fact that they're cheap is really nice. This will be pretty good. But if you want to launch these balloons, you need a balloon platform. So what you're going to do, place the balloon on the platform, and it just goes up. There it is. You can watch it. The wind is slightly taking it away, and it is going up and away. Alright, so if you want to make these balloon platforms, unfortunately they're a little expensive. It is literally the crafting recipe for an anvil, which is 3 blocks of iron, 4 iron ingots, but this time there's just 2 redstone dust added on the sides. So a lot of iron for something that can get destroyed so easily. I believe the wind speed is 120. So if there's tornadoes outside, you're gonna want to keep this close to you. You don't want to lose this. This is a little expensive. But basically that's all for the balloon platform. The next is our sounding viewer. So our sounding viewer is what we'll be actually be using to view the data from the balloon after it launches. If you want to make this, it is 5 iron ingots, redstone lamp, 2 redstone torches, and a redstone comparator. Redstone comparators aren't super hard to make either, so not super expensive on that one. But if you want to actually connect these and view the data, you need this connector. There's a whole lot of pieces to this, but it's worth it when you get to view your soundings. This connector is really easy to build. It's just copper and redstone, you know. So pretty easy to build here, and let's actually connect these. And would you look at that? So this is our sounding viewer. I'm gonna actually reset that. I'm gonna connect these. Now I'm gonna let y'all watch this. So in real time, you get to see the observed data that this performs. So each of these little lines are different pressures in the atmosphere. It's just showing you how the pressure gets lower as you go up in the atmosphere. That's how it works. But as you can see, as this balloon is going up, you can see it up there, it is transmitting live data. So you can see it's this red line is our temperature profile, and the green line is our dew point, which is really just a measure of how much water is in the atmosphere. Dew point is just the temperature of which water condenses. If you have a higher dew point, it's not going to take that much cooling to condense it, which means you have a lot of water vapor in the atmosphere, and that's really just a measure of your moisture, which is what storms need. And for our maroon line, which is a little lighter, that is our virtual temperature. Virtual temperature is a little too advanced to talk about here, but basically it's where our parcel starts at. That's all we need to know for this mod. And this white line here is our parcel path. So if we released a parcel of air, this is kind of the temperature it would follow along here as it went up. And basically the space between this white line and this red line here is our Cape value. So you can see there's not a lot of area between these lines, not a lot of instability. You're not going to get crazy storms, and that makes sense because we are kind of a colder region right now. So basically, depending on what biome you are is going to influence how much Cape and how much, you know, instability is going to go into these storms. Another factor I believe is, look at all that dry air. So usually you want, you know, a lot of warm moist air in the low levels to really pump up that instability as you go up. And that all just about does it for this mod showcase. If you enjoyed this video and want me to make more content like this, make sure to like and subscribe. And special thanks to ProtoManly for making this incredible mod, and to my friend Tofu for helping me make my Minecraft skin. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all next time.